For this assignment, we're going to continue to use Aptana Studio as our editor. In step one, you're asked to open the editor. We're opening the Aptana Studio, and we're specifically asked to open a file called htm_b-1.html. The numbering system for that, or the title for that file is not real important. It's just the numbering system used by the publisher. It's in the lessons folder under Unit B, so we're going to browse to that right now. We're going to go to Unit B, expand that out, and then expand out lessons. You may find that you have different content in your lessons folder than I do. I have some additional things there, and we'll open that in our editor, and you should see something that looks like this. Now, one of the things that's going to happen in today's assignment is we're going to go through changing the code quite a bit, and in the end, it's not going to make any visible difference in the browser. But I want to show you what the page will look like right now. So you can see the page is pretty basic. It includes some information about Lakeland Reed's Bed and Breakfast, which we'll continue to use the theme throughout the semester as we follow the exercises in the book, but just some really basic information. So I'm going to go ahead and close this for now, close the browser, go back to the editor, and start making the changes. First thing you're asked to do is below the title element, insert a comment. And we're going to do that here. I'm going to go to the title element and I'm going to create a comment. And then to close that comment, we're going to do the 2 dashes and then a greater than symbol. So your code should look similar to what you see on the screen right now and what's in your book. The next step, step 3, is to save a copy of the file to the lessons folder with the name About Us. And the reason we want to do this at this point is we want to keep the original publisher files in place, kind of unaltered, in case you ever need to go back with them. You want to start over, you want to try the exercise again. So we're going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to save it to the location where we are asked to do so in the book, and under Unit B, we're going to save it in Lessons folder, and it's asked, the exercise is asking us to call the file aboutus.htm. So now with the newly named file aboutus.html opened, we're going to return to the editor and click just to the left of the closing bracket in the HTML tag, so right here, to the left, and we're going to add an attribute, our first attribute, and the attribute is going to be the language attribute. We're going to say lang equals, and then we're going to put the quotes in there, and en. And you can probably imagine what that means or what that stands for. En stands for English. On page 31 of your book, down at the bottom, it gives you some common values that can go ahead along with the language attribute. You'll see Arabic, German, French, but most of the work you're probably going to do, at least in the early stages of your HTML development, is in English. For next step, step 7, we're going to click after the closing of the comment tag, and we're asked to push enter and then the space bar a certain number of times. One of the things to keep in mind is that spacing is not critical to the functionality of HTML. Typically, if I have 1 space or if I have 50 spaces, HTML makes it 1 space when it renders it on the screen. So why does your book give all this attention in the exercises to certain spacing? Well, it's about how it looks when you're editing. It's about organizing your HTML and making it look readable to someone who is actually viewing the code. It really doesn't make any difference the number of spaces or even line breaks. Blank lines within your code does not make any difference in most cases to how your HTML is rendered or shown to the end user in the web browser. But again, we'll try to generally follow their guidelines, the book's guidelines, when it asks you to make spaces, because what they're trying to do is get you in a good habit of spacing things out so the code is easily readable. For instance, if you take a look at this head tag, and then you go down to the closing head tag, you can see they all have the same indent. So it's pretty easy to see if you're looking for where does a certain tag end and begin if the indents are lined up. But that's why we go through all this about spacing, and it may seem a little bit tedious, but good coding habits would have you put the spaces in there, even though it doesn't make a huge difference in the way the page is rendered. In most cases, it makes no difference at all. Step 8, we're going to keep our cursor where it's at after the closing of the comment tag, and we're going to add another tag, the meta tag. The attribute is going to be character set, and the value is going to be UTF-8. Again, in most cases, this is not going to change the way your page is rendered, but it does help the web browser, the client user's machine and software to be able to properly render the page. So this is all we have right now. It's pretty simple. What we did here, and I'm just going to save this document so we have a saved version of it, we simply added the language attribute and value and the character set attribute. We can save this and then we'll go ahead and view it, and you'll notice really quickly here there's no difference in the way it looks in the browser, but the reality is that we've helped the browser along to be able to render this better. We're going to continue on with the file we were using earlier, and we're going to talk about implementing the div element. We're going to return to the About Us document we've been working on. We're going to click after the closing heading 1 tag, and we are going to hit enter, hit the spacebar 6 times. And again, as I said earlier, we're not actually going to hit the spacebar 6 times because Aptena has automatically indented it for us. And we're going to put a tag called the div tag. Now this is where it gets a little interesting because Aptena tries to help you along. When you build an opening tag, it wants to close it for you. You notice when I built this opening div, it automatically created a closing div. Well, that would be great if we wanted to put content between those two spots, but we want to surround content that already exists with these div tags, and so we want the closing div somewhere else, as is seen by step 4. So we're going to get rid of the closing div that Aptena automatically created for us. After the first P, we're going to hit enter, and we're going to create a closing div. Now you may notice that some of our indentations are not lining up completely the way we want them to. I'm going to correct that here just by adding some spaces. And if you look, it should look similar to what you see in the example in your book. So for step 6, we're going to go ahead and we're going to save this file. And then we're going to look at it in the browser. So we're back to Aptena, editing the aboutus.html file. We're going to go ahead and go to step 2, since we already have the file opened in our editor. Click after the closing body tag, and here's the body tag right here. We're going to press enter and the spacebar 6 times so it lines up with the H1 tag. And we're going to type less than, the word header, and then greater than. Now, again, you see that in this case, Aptena is trying to help us along by automatically closing the tag. We're going to get rid of that closing tag and place it where it really needs to be, and that's after the H1. We're going to manually put that in. Now we're going to click just before the H1 tag. To give it a little bit of an indent. Again, it should look close to what you're seeing in your book. Then after the closing div, we're going to place a tag, and it's called footer. Get rid of the automatically created closing tag. And then place a closing footer tag after the closing P. Then after the meta tag, we're going to add another tag calling a script. We're going to go like this. We're going to say script, src, And another way to think of SRC when you see it in HTML is it's kind of an abbreviation for the word source. Okay, we're talking about the source, where to find this particular script. And we're going to accept the automatically created closing tag in this case. Save the file. View the file. And again, we're on the third exercise where we're making all these little changes in the background code, but it's not really making a change to the end HTML as it's rendered or seen by the user. All right, we're now on the use of special characters within HTML. Most text is added to a web page simply by typing it. So if you want something to say the on a web page, you would simply type THE. Pretty simple, right? However, there's a handful of common characters such as the ampersand, the cents symbol, which we don't use much in today's society, the little C with a slash through the middle of it, and other special characters that run the risk of being misinterpreted when they are included in code because they have special uses within the code. So there are also some characters that just don't appear on your keyboard, like maybe a bullet. And the cent symbol is another one. You can't find a cent symbol on a modern keyboard. So for that reason, we use these things called character references, which are specially formatted codes that represent characters in an HTML document. So whenever we're using one of these character references within the code, we always start it with an ampersand and end it with a semicolon. Now I'm going to do something here that's not included in your book, okay? Because I want to show you what can happen and how this could work. Let's just say for whatever reason in the header of the Lakeland Reads Bed and Breakfast text, you want to actually put the copyright symbol. So I'm going to start with an ampersand, and then I'm going to continue by writing the word copy. C-O-P-Y, and then we were told that all of these character references include a trailing or an end character of a semicolon. Let's see what happens once I save this file and view it in the browser. Look at that, there's a copyright symbol appears right here. Now we really don't want to have a copyright symbol there, so I'm going to go back to the code and I'm going to remove that, and then we'll continue on with the exercise. We're going to delete the word and in the name Lakeland Reads Bed and Breakfast, and we're going to replace it with an ampersand. Now there's a couple ways to do this. An ampersand is something that exists on the keyboard, and I could simply just type, like I'm going to do right now, type an ampersand. The problem with that, as stated earlier, is some of these special characters can be misinterpreted. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the code, we want you to literally just put an ampersand here, not take into account the possible special meanings of the ampersand symbol. So remember, all of these character references start with an ampersand. So this is an example why you probably just don't want to use an ampersand on its own to represent just an ampersand. Because if you do, the web browser may think, hey, there's more coming. All character references, special character references, include an ampersand at the beginning. So if all I were to do was to put an ampersand here, the browser may say there's more coming. It's going to try to describe something else, like the copyright symbol we tried earlier. But if what I really want to do is show an ampersand, I'm going to use the ampersand symbol followed by the ampersand code. Remember, the code for the copyright symbol was the word copy, C-O-P-Y semicolon. For an ampersand, it's A-M-P colon. Now you can see as I'm typing this, Aptena is again trying to help me along, giving me a hint as I was typing the AM. It said, well, you probably mean AMP because it knows that that is a legitimate character reference. So let's see what happens now when we look at this in a browser. We have this text here that says Lakeland Reads Bed, ampersand, amp, semicolon, breakfast. We'll go ahead and save this, run it in the browser, and it does exactly what we needed it to do. It actually puts an ampersand character right there. So the next thing we're going to do is deal with step number 5. we're going to delete the first hyphen in the footer, okay? The one between Grass Lane and Marble, Minnesota. We're going to replace that with the ampersand, then number sign, and that opens up a whole new world of potential characters. We're going to replace it with the number 8226 semicolon. Now, if you have no idea what that is, you can probably imagine, since we took a dash or a hyphen out of the code, we're probably going to replace it with a hyphen now. But let's take a look and see what happens. We're going to run this in the browser after we save the document. And notice there is now a bullet here. Okay, so what we did is we took the dash away and we replaced it with a bullet. Let's go back to the code and see how that looks. Notice the second dash we left in here, but we replaced the first dash with a special code that resulted in a bullet. Right now you may be thinking, well, I'm going to keep track of all these codes. Some of them that you use on a regular basis, like the copyright symbol or the ampersand, you'll begin to memorize over time. Some of you may just have to reference through online tools. Say, okay, how do I get a bullet to show up? Look it up and it will tell you the code's 8226. Let's go ahead and save this. Look at it in your web browser, and you'll notice now the place where there was a hyphen between the address and the city and between the zip code and the phone number, there is now a bullet. That completes the use of special characters exercise.